So we're really pleased to have all of you with us here today on this rainy here slash snowy day. I'm sure for most of us, I believe we're mostly northeast from what I recall from the registrations. Um, and we all know in addition to the actual weather that the climate for hiring right now is rather tough. And one of the ways that we here at Polaris MEP are working on helping our manufacturers and essentially all industries with that is helping them to become employers of choice. One of those ways to become an employer of choice is to take a look at this job quality toolkit, which was developed by the Baldrige Foundation and NIST. So they did some heavy-handed research and found 8 main drivers of job quality, one of them being benefits, which is what we're here to zero in on today. So, next slide. We've got some great people to talk to you about that here today. Susan Breen here is the Membership Relations Specialist at EANE, which is a member-based organization that connects over 1,000 member companies of all industries. So it's great to have more than just manufacturers here on the call. Connects them to a full range of HR and business development services. She oversees Rhode Island and east of Worcester, Mass, which will, for all intents and purposes, just say is the rest of Rhode Island. So Paul Cooney here grew up with manufacturing all around him throughout his life and found his way to Mutual of America, where he's a group account representative. He's committed his life's work to financial education and has been in that industry for over 19 years, working with individuals, business owners, and nonprofit leaders to maximize their wealth. He's been a proud member of the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association for about 6 years. In the last 3 years, throughout COVID, Paul has grown a beard. As you'll see from this picture here on the screen, we now see the Paul in real life is an entirely different man. So quick rundown of the agenda will have us going through finishing up the introduction we're doing now. I'll turn it over to our friends to give some information on benefits as a recruitment and retention strategy, as well as how to evaluate and improve your benefits offerings. 2 of those main benefits that we found employees want, which you'll see more information on how we found that, are retirement plans and profit sharing plans, which is exactly what folks on this call have more information about, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. So lastly, before I turn it over to them, I'll let you know who I am as your core host. I am the workforce manager here at Polaris MEP. Polaris MEP's sole mission is to help small and medium-sized Rhode Island manufacturers to improve, grow, and increase profitability. That means customized and affordable solutions for top lines, bottom lines, and pipelines. It also means a one-stop shop for connections to resources in Rhode Island and across the United States. We're measured by the impact we have on our clients. So in order to be successful, the work we do must produce an impact for our clients. Those measurable impacts are reduced expenses, jobs retained or created, and sales. A critical way we achieve those impacts is actually in our name, Polaris MEP. The MEP stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So we're one of 51 MEP centers across the US, which are all dedicated to helping domestic manufacturers. Today, we're focusing on that P in MEP, the partnership. So let me turn it over to our first partner on deck here today, Susan.
Thank you so much, Aaron, and I appreciate the invitation to present. So I'm excited today. Again, my name is Susan Breen, and thank you all for joining us today. And I must say, I'm like thrilled. This is all virtual, right? Imagine if we had to get in the car and drive. So thanks for joining us. I have been with the Employers Association of the Northeast, or EANE. Yes, it's a mouthful, for just over 5 years. And we're a nonprofit organization, and we've been supporting businesses for about 100 years, believe it or not. And manufacturing has been one of our biggest industries that we support, it still is about 30% of the industries, of the industries that we support. And it's because we started out supporting manufacturing way back when. So we support companies in all of the Northeast, certainly, Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island, and Vermont, believe it or not, is really our biggest piece of the pie for the Northeast. We currently have about 1,100 member companies who really look at us as an extension of their human resources department. So we help large organizations and small. Lots of times the smaller organization, it's the owner who is having to deal with human resources too. So, and it's just too hard to do that by yourself. Even with a large HR department, we support folks. So happy to discuss further later on if anyone is interested in learning more. So here it is. First, we really just have to take a deep breath and review where we are and kind of what's happening. Certainly our current landscaping, a landscape, everyone is struggling finding employees. So the most important thing you can do really is keep the ones that you have. That is certainly, so the beginning half here, I'm really going to talk about that. And then it's really about how do we attract, new employees. But it's super important that we take a look at the employees that we have. But where did everyone go? So the pandemic happened, we woke up, we came out of it, and now we can't find people. So lots of things have happened, and it really was kind of a perfect storm, I guess. High baby boomer retirements. The pandemic came and left, and it was here for a long time, right? So we all developed new habits, and we got comfortable in them. So it made people really think about where they are, where they wanted to be, and what is their why. So we had all that time because we weren't so crazy, right? So certainly lower birth rates, less people are having babies. Gen Z is the smallest generation. And honestly, there's just not enough of us. So candidates have choices, and they're taking their time to find out really what is it that they want to do. The opioid crisis really took a toll on males. And really the migration out of the New England states, it's really booming in the South and the West. But New England, we need to really talk about how fun skiing is and what the mountains can do, because we have to get people moving back here. So those are some of the issues, right? So what's happened in human resources? Compensation is rising, right? And it's very difficult. So things are getting tough. So culture. This is so important. And, I'm not here to discuss the employee value statement and the employee value proposition, but this really we have found is so important. Companies that have that are doing very well with recruiting folks and keeping folks. And it's really because everyone in the company understands what the mission is and what they're doing and what their why is. So, certainly Google employee value proposition and think about getting one for your organization. So here's some thoughts from the Manufacturing Institute and the Colonial Life Best Practices Study. So as I just mentioned, intense competition to find employees. So, this is one of the biggest problems that people are having. And in local markets, there's an intense competition for employees as well, for manufacturers and larger companies, distribution companies, many of whom have all increased their compensation. So roughly, 3 out of 4 manufacturers felt that increased compensation has helped keep their company competitive in their ability to recruit and retain. But, while base hourly wages and salaries are cited as the most important for retention, other benefits were also important. Obviously, health insurance, bonuses, additional source of income, paid vacation, but contributions to 401k retirement plan was also cited. So weathering the storm, as I mentioned, retention matters. It's certainly important to identify your top performers and, ask them, why do you stay? What are the benefits that really matter to you? And when you can determine what those benefits are and what's the reasons why they stay, you can start getting a clear picture that can help you determine your employee value proposition, right? And determine what are their needs and why do they stay. It can really get you focused. So that is really an important thing. Realistic job descriptions are so important for attracting the talent and retaining them. So really get those fine-tuned. Consider coaching your employees that are struggling. Give them, reasons to stay. But certainly the important thing is make sure your benefits are desirable to the employees that you have and for those who you want to attract. And this one is a great one. I just think it really goes back to the pandemic issues, and it's really important that we all do well together. So it matters around, do you have a career with purpose? What is that why? Social, do you have hobbies, friendships, and relationships? These are all important things. And community is so important. And if you think about it, your organization is your little community, right? So people have to feel connected to their community. So that one is important. So how do we attract the talent? It's important to start reevaluating your benefits. Times are changing, like I just described. Understand your financing options, right? Save some money. And here's where I say it's super important that you are making sure your broker is your partner and not just a vendor, right? So there are creative things that you can do. Certainly, student loan reimbursement plans are awesome. And Suzanne Hanlon is on the screen right now. So she's from the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority, and she has a wonderful program that can help you with student loan reimbursement. It's super easy. Other financial wellness programs, Cambridge Credit Counseling. We work with this organization. It's up in Springfield, and they really can help with getting your folks out of, credit card debt, and just how to manage your financing. So, and they do that for free, right? So if your employees are coming with the burden of finances, it's hard for them to focus on their jobs. So this is a super company that can really help, take care of some of that burden. Mental health benefits. Certainly, EAP is so important, which is an employer assistance program. Right here in Warwick, Rhode Island, we have Coastline EAP. They're also national. For those in Vermont, you can still use Coastline. But they're for the whole family, and they really work towards getting, the whole family involved in wellness. So just think about some of those things. So here's some highlights from the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM for short. So healthcare benefits. 93% of organizations are offering telemedicine. So this is up 20% since 2019. And 98% of companies do offer some health benefits. But retirement savings. So 82% of employers selected retirement and savings as an important benefit. This is up 27% from 2021, excuse me. Employers rank retirement and savings benefits as among the most important type of benefits they can offer their employees. And employers still strongly believe in the importance of retirement and saving benefits. This could be because so many people saw the baby boomers retiring and they thought, oh my goodness, I better have that too, right? So another thing from the pandemic. Certainly leave was important, family care. Over half of organizations, 59%, said they offer dependent care, flexible spending accounts, which is a great way for employees to save funds directly to expenses related to caregiving. Professional development right there at 78% is super important as well. That's up from 75% in 2021. And I think people really enjoy improving their skills. There is that skills gap, and that's so I'm certain that that's why that's listed. So here it is. This is the slide you've all been waiting for, really. Customization. One size does not fit all. So we've got the baby boomers, millennials, the Gen X and the Gen Z. So these are all very important, and you'll all get these slides, so you'll be able to see what each generation is interested in. And here's where I really say, know your audience. You've got to talk to your team, your staff, and figure out what it is that they want, and then offer as much as you can. Right? We know things are tight. So this is a great slide. I received it from Polaris MEP. The data comes from CARA Collective. They are a leader in poverty alleviation. And they did a national study on upward mobility for frontline employees. It shows that manufacturing frontline workers want compared to frontline workers in other industries, such as retail. Frontline workers for manufacturing prioritize pay, job growth, aligned skill set, learning opportunities, and job security. And they place less value on, higher job titles, flexible schedules, and supportive managers, and voicing opinions and more responsibility. Very interesting. Frontline workers and manufacturers offered, after the pandemic, put greater importance on pay, health, and retirement benefits and job security. They placed less importance on things like flexible schedules and suitable environment. Although I will say I have a member in manufacturing who have been able to change the way that they schedule their work. So they're really open. They have some people coming in at 3 a.m. and, leaving at 11. So they've really opened up the scheduling. So it's really kind of thinking out of the box and what can you do? And if your folks are really interested in flexible, what can you do? Or are they not? They don't care. So this is great. This, one size also doesn't fit every company. So we partner with our sister associations across the country. There are 32 of them, and 13 of them got together and we did this national benefits survey. We do it every year, and the results came in yesterday. So it's a great way to benchmark what's offered by union and non-union companies for production and clerical staff. And, they sorted out by the number of sizes. So this is a great national data, and New England specific is in the back. So I'm happy to share this report with anyone who's interested. If you're a member of our organization and you participate in this study, you get this for free. Otherwise, it's a $500 value. But since you've joined me today, I'm happy to share that report with you. So think out of the box. So get creative and encourage balance in benefits. I mentioned financial wellness education, but Mutual of America really has a great plan for education, for financial education. Cambridge Counseling, Rhode Island Student Loan, mentioned that. Here's one, Health and Wellness Initiatives, the Charge Group. They are out of New Jersey. So this doesn't cost you any money as an employer. They are a nutritional wellness. So what they do is they actually charge your health insurance company, not you. So it's all through telehealth. And so you just have a Zoom meeting at lunch, and you can really work on your nutritional values. So this really works for anyone. So they are a great group, Charge Group out of New Jersey. And then, so these are just some of the different things that you can do. Pet to Work Day. Who knows if that would work for you, but if you can do it, people love it, right? So winning the talent war, wrap up here. So it's super important that you benchmark your comp and benefits. Where do you stand? Where do you stand against some of your competitors? Do you pay lower, mid, or higher? How are your benefits? Determine where and who you are and who you want to be, and certainly own it. I put a few resources here for your comp data. Check out your association. There might be some salary benchmarking surveys there. OStarNet online. That is certainly it's a great free tool that you can use. Salary.com. Salary.com tends to be a little bit high, mostly because it's people reporting what their salary is. But certainly at EANE, we have been super busy doing comp plans for folks. And if you need to have a market analysis done, or you want to move the way of most of the way it's working is where you get the job, the job scales and categories. So in ranges, that's really where we're moving. We used to have that way back when, but we're moving in that direction again. So it's super important to create the robust benefits plan. And the important thing is make sure your broker is working for you, because we are all trying to move to be the irresistible organization, right? This is the end game. We all want to be that employer of choice, and it takes hard work, constant reevaluating, and constant conversations with your employees. And I would just leave you with this, really, because this is super important. It's cliche, right? But I have to say it, your employees are your most important asset. If they're engaged in their work and committed to the mission of the organization, they'll deliver higher performance and take care of your customers. And we all know that to be true, right? Just one more thing, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. EANE is partnered with Mutual of America because we've launched, last year, we launched a multiple employer plan. So what this means is you can start a 401k plan and put it in the pile with all of our members. So we become the fiduciary. And what does that mean for you? It reduced the associated fees with financial plans, with 401k plans. So with all that, Paul, you are up next.
How about a round of applause from my friend Susan Breen there?
Thank you, Paul. You're too kind.
Susan Breen, wonderful job. But in all seriousness, great job, Susan. And I want to thank both Erin and Aaron for facilitating this conversation. As Susan mentioned, we are partners. I'm very fortunate to have called her a partner for many years now. And if you're a local Rhode Islander, it's pretty normal to see us out and about together, but we don't always have the opportunity to present together on topics like this. So, I want to just take a minute and make sure that I acknowledge that. I think very highly of the Employers Association as well, if you're not a member. Susan, you really, I mean, I'm sitting and I'm listening and I'm jotting notes, and I was just so there's so many things that I thought were appropriate and applicable and helpful to this conversation, right? So I'm going to start, and I'm going to try and, weave these different points into our conversation. For those of you that are in HR or maybe own a plan, I certainly want to make this part of the conversation conversational. So if you have questions or comments, if you want to, dig in and get more granular, I'm happy to do that. We have a, nimble enough group that I think we can do that. And really, I think it'd be to your advantage rather than to, hear me just sort of drone on and on about it. But consistent with, what we're talking about, it's how can we help you win the war on talent? Let's see. Yeah, Susan, so many good points earlier. You talked about retention, and same is true whether you're trying to retain clients or you're in business and you're trying to find new sales, right? The best customer that you have is the one that you already have, right? It's just cheaper to keep the people that you work with than it is to go out and get new ones. So I want to make sure that I talk a little bit about that in our presentation, as well as a lot of the other topics that Susan covered. So let me jump in here. I think, there we go. Okay, we're going to do this one bullet point at a time. My apologies. So to Aaron's point, I have had a beard for a little over 3 years now. This was a COVID thing, and it just stuck. But in that picture, I was a much younger gentleman, fairly, not super green, but yeah, had just begun my career. For those
no less enthusiastic though, Paul. Young, perhaps, but no less enthusiastic.
Exactly. I thought it was important just to tell you a little bit about me, because I think, when you think about retirement plans and where we're at, it's important to know who you're talking to, and to Susan's point, what's their why, right? So I'm born and raised in Worcester. That growing up, I thought Worcester was like the greatest community on the face of the earth, only to meet other folks who had moved to, suburban communities and realize that, Worcester was a post-industrial community, like a lot of communities. And it's just part of my DNA. I've had an opportunity to travel extensively throughout the Rust Belt. That should be another bullet point here. It feels like I'm having a hard time moving these. There we go. Oh, there we go. I've lived pretty extensively throughout the Rust Belt. I moved to Cleveland in 2008 and spent time in Akron. And Pittsburgh, and then traveled to Chicago, and all through every point in between. So I feel, a strong relationship with manufacturing and the manufacturing communities that, have built this country. That's in no small part why I decided to get into this business. And I have sort of a funny story about that as well. But I began my career in 2003, which was really an interesting time in the retirement industry. We had been about 23 to 25-ish years in the 401k plan business at that point in time, like overall industry-wide. And there really wasn't a ton of great support for rank and file employees at that point in time. And I witnessed firsthand how people were sort of lost. They were investing rather recklessly, or they weren't investing at all. They were treating these accounts as if they were savings accounts, that they might, access at their local bank. And so the government really did a good job of stepping in and providing different supports through various legislative acts, really since I began in the career, to help sort of, alter the direction of retirement savings in this country. So it's a little bit about me. let's see, definitely having a lag here. Susan, can you try and
I
advance
was just gonna say, you want me to do it, Paul?
if it goes quicker? Yeah.
All right, I'll take it back. Okay.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay.
There we go.
So, you know, not to, you know, beat a dead horse, but, you know, we're obviously at a really interesting point in time. For those that aren't Employers Association members, Susan and her group put on a monthly roundtable that happens, you know, the second Friday of the month. And we've spent a lot of time over these last however many months talking about this issue and thinking thoughtfully about how do you attract and retain. Interestingly enough, we knew this was going to happen. This kind of demographic shift was something that was decades in the making. It's just the pandemic accelerated it, right? And then you have all these other factors that we couldn't have factored in. So there's no way we would have known that the opioid crisis would have had the effect that it's had. I was honestly thinking about that. I'm like, we could have a whole little separate conversation about the opioid crisis and its impact on the workforce and just society overall. But we would have had no way of really notifying or understanding really the kind of new workforce, right? You know, we all have younger folks, you know, in our employ, and we're learning about the different ways in which they work, the different values they have, and there's a bit of a culture clash there, right? And people find themselves frustrated and trying to kind of navigate, you know, carrot, stick. How do you get some harmony there? The migration out of New England is just, you know, it's a fascinating thing. It's not happening in droves, but it's certainly something that you need to keep an eye on. Susan, if you can advance as well. So, you know, before we start looking at solutions, talking specifically about financial problems. So let's take a step back. Let's think about what's going on financially in this country. First and foremost, if you're not uber familiar with the history of retirement savings, really interesting stuff. I mean, we're talking all the way back. The first pension originated in the days of the Roman Empire. It was given to Roman soldiers returning home from war. That's historically been, you know, the birth of pension plans. The first pension plan was actually, the first corporate pension plan was, I want to say, American Express in the mid 1800s. Over its time, you know, they grew in popularity, but never peaked more than about 47% of private sector employees had access to pension plans. You compare that with what we see today, only 13% of private sector employees have access to pension plans. The 401k plan, I'm going to give you some more information on that in a minute. That was born in 1978 as a result of the Budget Reduction Act of 1978. That made a significant shift in the way Americans were saving and corporations were providing for employees in retirement. This third bullet point may or may not surprise you. But I found it surprising. I first learned of this probably two and a half years ago, and the numbers keep startling, keep shocking. So as of this point, for workers between 18 and 64, a recent AARP study showed that roughly 47% of working Americans don't have access to any employer-sponsored retirement plan. That equates to about 58 million Americans. And so when you think about that, you think about what's the average Social Security check? It's roughly $1,500. The government is really interested in making sure that they're doing everything that they can to help organizations who are interested in starting retirement plans do so, because quite honestly, they're afraid of what's going to happen if they don't. And then finally, spending, you know, we're by many accounts, we're expecting a recessionary year this year. I was at a really great presentation from Providence Business News on their economic outlook for the year. And the keynote speaker is saying, look, at the only thing that's kept the economy running is consumers and the amount of debt that they're willing to take on. And we're starting to sort of run up against, the limit there. So Susan, if you would advance. So all of this, not to say that a retirement plan is a silver bullet, right? But I really did appreciate that SHRM study that showed, and Susan, there's a couple more bullet points underneath there. I really did appreciate that SHRM study that showed your retirement plan is most often your second most appreciated benefit that an employer can offer. It's something that we know, it's something that every employer that has one knows. And yet it's also something that doesn't always get necessarily the attention that it needs. Susan, I thought you did a great job talking about, you don't need to advance right now. I thought you did a great job talking about evaluating your benefits right now, right? And thinking, being more creative. You didn't talk about how we've heard people ask for pet insurance, right? As somewhat silly as that may sound, we have heard that in our roundtables. I can't say monthly, but it's definitely not out of the ordinary to hear people talking about pet insurance. So as you're kind of taking inventory of the different benefits that you offer, making sure that you have a good retirement plan and that you have a cost-effective retirement plan is really, really important. So we're going to show you today how we can help you attract top talent, build high-performing teams, increase your retention, and finally, for those of you that are in senior management or possibly own the businesses yourself, how you yourself can do well by doing good for others. Can you advance, Susan? So let's start with, what is a 401k? So loosely defined, it's basically a defined contribution plan. The way the code is written and the jargon that's used, it can get a little bit complicated, but by and large, 401k is kind of the commonly used moniker to talk about what is somebody's retirement plan. Some examples of other retirement plans might include a simple IRA, a SEP IRA, straight profit sharing plans, employee stock ownership plans. These do not include your more traditional defined benefit plan, a pension plan, or a cash balance plan. Susan? As I mentioned, it was the 401k was established in 1978 through the Revenue Act of 1978. It is a tax advantaged account to save for retirement. Those words, tax advantaged, being the key words there. It's not a savings account. It's not a checking account. I mentioned that both for those of you that have employees who come to you and look for information, but also for those of you that may not have one right now. There is some hoops you need to jump through in order to get that tax advantage benefit that we can talk about, at another point in time. Another big benefit of a 401k is that it is payroll deducted. So all the money comes out of everybody's paycheck. People either elect to do traditional contributions, which is a pre-tax contribution, so it reduces your taxable income in the year in which you do it, or on an after-tax basis, also known as a Roth, which gives you the ability to defer. In fact, so long as you leave that money in there 5 years, you don't pay any taxes on your gains as well. So Roths are really, really popular options and are becoming increasingly more popular in 401k plans. Employers can contribute. You do not have to, but it is a way to, sort of sweeten the pot as you not only offer a retirement plan to your employees, but to be able to say, hey, look, in addition to offering a 401k, we're able to make a contribution, either a matching contribution, a base contribution, or we may have a profit sharing element, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well. But finally, back to the checking and savings point, where people have been tripped up, right? And this is what I've seen and experienced, and this is in no small part why I decided to stay in this field, was people really, you're investing in the stock market. And a lot of your average Americans don't know a whole heck of a lot about that, and it scares them. And so our job, to Susan's point, our job at Mutual of America is to try and make that as simple and easy to understand as possible. If you could. So this was this first, not necessarily bullet point, but headlining piece was something I found really, really interesting, and I only found it very recently. But a 2019 SCORE study found that 34% of small business owners said that they didn't have a retirement plan for themselves. Can you believe that? 34%. 40% said they weren't confident that they would retire before the age of 65. It feels like it's no small point, isn't it, Aaron? Aaron just sent a nice message there. It's no small point. I don't want to breeze over it too quickly. Those are big numbers. Roughly a third and almost half of small business owners don't really know when they're going to retire. So the benefits of offering a 401k is that if you do offer one, first and foremost, if you do not have one right now and you're interested in setting one up, the government is so interested in people setting up plans, they're basically going to underwrite all of the expenses through tax credits that you can eligible to receive for up to 3 years. That's valued at roughly $16,500. So that's a nice incentive right there to help eliminate any of the heavy lifting on the front end. If you do offer a plan or you are interested in offering employer contributions, those contributions are tax deductible as well. We already talked a little bit about how your contributions grow tax deferred, whether that's pre-tax or Roth. And again, with the Roth, you don't have to pay any taxes so long as you leave it in there 5 years. And then the final bullet point here, this is, there's very few places where you can save as much money as you can in a 401k plan. So many of you, I'm sure, have seen IRAs advertised at your local bank. Some of you may even have your own IRA that you may use for rollover purposes or whatever. But the reality is, on a payroll deduction basis with your own money as well as employer money, the ability to save potentially up to $66,000 and $73,500 in the year 2023, those are large sums of money. So quickly, for those of you that are here, how many of you, can we just do a quick little live interaction? How many of you actually have a retirement plan? And I know Kelly had to drop off. Suzanne does. Megan. Ian does. Darlene, did they make their way up to Vermont yet?
Yes, we have a retirement plan.
Oh, just teasing. All right, good. So, so we're not talking any newbies here. So for those of you that have retirement plans, how do you kind of look at it, right? How do you measure the health and the success of your retirement plan? Well, one key indicator is by looking at your employee participation. Overall, how many folks are taking advantage of your plan? If they aren't, why aren't they? If they aren't, that also has tremendous potential impact on the highly compensated employees, as well as the key administrators, including owners. So start by looking at that. Employee education definitely plays a big part in that. That's our experience, but it's not the only tool that we have in the bag. Susan, if you would. So these are just some of the other different ways, participation rates, which is, something you would find through determining overall how many folks are taking advantage of it. What's the average salary deferral rate? This is something that I know, I've learned over the years. Everybody says, do at least the company match, right? If you have a company match, do the company match. Well, what about those employees who just plateau and they stay there for years on years on years, and they don't further advance their salary deferrals? That's something that we see frequently, and it's something that as a nation we need to do a better job of addressing and helping people increase. When you start out, you're making X, and hopefully you get increases and bonuses and promotions. So we want to make sure that people continue to increase their contributions over the years. Potential outcomes, there's lots of stuff out there right now around retirement readiness. Are people likely going to be able to live in retirement? And whether it's Mutual of America or whatever firm you're working with currently, we can help you with that. And then finally, the average account balance. So let's see here. How do you ensure that your current retirement plan remains competitive? First and foremost, we hope that you're meeting with whomever your provider is on a regular basis. I need to grab some water here, excuse me. Not just to review your investments, but to review overall what's your plan design. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you see something to the effect of, what are potential plan design changes that you might be able to make? Do you have automatic enrollment? Is that something that you're offering now? Is auto escalation, which is another component of that, something that you're looking at or already have? How often are you reviewing your relationship with your provider or providers? Many folks have either an unbundled retirement plan, which is basically you go out and you have a broker and a record keeper as well as a third-party administrator. What's your process for reviewing each one of those components? And then finally, with all that you have going on, assuming many of you work in HR here, I know how much you guys have on your plate, so I certainly don't want to add another something to your plate that you have to take on yourself. But joining calls like this, staying current on what's going on in the industry is really, really important. Susan. So we want to make sure we do a quick introduction of profit sharing plans. I'm thrilled to hear that everybody here has a retirement plan. Is anybody comfortable sharing if you have a profit sharing plan already or not? So a profit sharing plan is a pretty nice way of giving yourself room to make a contribution in the event that you have a good year. So it's not something that you have to do, right? It's a one-time end of year contribution. There's 3 ways that you can potentially pay it out. And this is really speaking to the attraction piece, right? Many employers offer some sort of matching contribution. A base contribution is a really nice thing if you can do it. And a profit sharing contribution is just extra something on top. So there's 3 different types. There's traditional or kind of pro rata. So you'd make a uniform contribution according to what everybody's salary is, and that's that. There's age weighted, where you can factor in everybody's age and assign different payouts according to that, as well as their salary. And then we also have finally these new comparability plans, which is by far the most flexible choice, and it allows you to kind of categorize different segments of your workforce and be able to pay out according to basically like what's the time value of money. We're getting close to it, so I want to make sure we're just about done anyways. Susan, if you can advance. So as I mentioned, it's not a required thing, right? You can write this into your plan document, and if you have the means to do it, great. If not, you don't have to do it. But it is something that you do at the end of the year. So again, it allows you to kind of look at your budget and determine whether or not you can do it. You can provide higher allocations to target groups. It can be useful in attracting senior managers. And again, as I mentioned, you can use it to establish different classes or categories within your employee base. So some examples here, 3 different examples. First, for those, because the first example we talked about was traditional, right? So uniform, we're going to give everybody 5% across the board, and however that plays out according to their salary is how it plays out. For those that are looking for like an age-weighted contribution, this is just one example. For everybody 45 years of age and under, they're going to get 5%. 45 to 54, they're going to get 7%. 55 plus, they're going to get 9%. Service weighted, if you've been with the firm under 5 years, you get 5. 5 to 10 years, you get 7, and 11 plus, you get 9. That's, to talk about retention right there. I didn't get to touch on vesting schedules, but you guys, everybody has a plan already, so I'm sure you're already familiar with that. So no need to go back to that. And then finally, this new comparability, which really allows you to help senior leaders take advantage of basically kind of like the catch-up contribution. And so in this example, you're looking at, like, again, what's the time value of money? So, exactly. So how does this play out for an employee who's 25 relative to the owner of a company who's 55? If you're allocating 20% to that owner, we have to cross test things, and there's definitely ways of using an actuary to help you determine what's best for you and your employee base. But this allows you to potentially put the bulk of the money towards senior folks. Any questions with that? I know Megan just had to run. So to summarize really quick, again, Susan did a wonderful job. It's a really, really difficult market out there right now. You need to be sharp. If you're not offering a retirement plan, which all of you are, maybe just the folks who are going to tune in after the fact. If you aren't offering one, you need to be thinking about doing it. Overall, Americans need to be saving more. We're not, and we need to see that change. Long-term savings is about 8.8%. We're currently sitting at about 4.7%. And the median 401k balance is actually $35,000, if you can believe that. So not very good numbers. And then, yes, if you work with the right partners, if you're thinking about this strategically, not just in terms of your retirement plan and what sort of offerings do you have there, but how can you potentially reallocate monies and be thoughtful and efficient with your capital to offer your employees the most bang for their buck. And that is it.
Right, what are we thinking, folks? Yeah, thanks very much for your presentations, Paul and Susan. See, we do have their contact information up here. And Susan, question, do you have to be a member of EANE in order to be a part of the multiple employer program?
Yes, you do. That's part of it, because we take on the full fiduciary responsibility of it. It's our plan. But the interesting part is you have the ability to absolutely, it is your plan, right? You get to choose the investments, you get to choose what your plan looks like, but it goes into our big bucket. Okay.
So is there a specific number of employees you have to kind of access that plan?
No, I mean, certainly, I would say over 5, but, just to make sense of it, but yeah, anything, any size works.
So not micro businesses, but basically anything that would be small at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Small to medium.
Okay.
Yep.
We do actually have employers as small as 5 that are participating.
That's great. So is this a good or bad time for you, Paul, for employers to start thinking about a retirement plan benefit for their workers. We're noting that banks and financial markets, feel pretty scary for most people right now. It feels uncertain. So is this kind of a recommended time to get in the field?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of noise right now, Aaron. Thank you. It's a good question. There's definitely a lot of noise right now. It's not every day that you see a bank fail like we saw with SVB last week. We're definitely looking at most prognosticators think that we're going to, face some sort of recessionary environment. The beauty of a retirement plan is there's never really a bad time. It's really less about timing the market and it's more about time in the market. So yeah, good question. Not a bad time at all. And in fact, again, everybody here already has a plan, but for those that don't, with the government tax credits that are available, now is an excellent time to start.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, thanks very much for all of your time and insight today. We appreciate it.